This is Bad Fatty with Laura Burns and Lindley Ashline. We're two rad fatties chatting about the world we live in and how to change it. In this episode, we're talking about the difference between a good fatty and a bad fatty, body positivity versus body liberation, and Donut Lake and Liberation Lake. You should be aware that this episode contains some discussion of intentional weight loss, healthism, ableism, and eating disorders.
Let's do it. So this is our first time. Welcome to our new podcast, Bad Fatty, where we talk about whatever we want to talk about. Hi, my name is Laura Burns. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Houston, Texas, and I am a yoga teacher. I lead retreats. I do trainings. I care about fat people, and my whole jam is body liberation, fat liberation. And this is my friend Lindley.
Hi, I'm Lindley. You probably already know both of us if you have run across this, but we're introducing ourselves anyway. As you can tell, we're super serious and organized around here. But I'm Lindley, she, her pronouns. I'm a photographer and fat activist. I have my fingers in a lot of pies. I do stock photography, client photography, like portraits, boudoir, small business. I do help at every size consulting. I'm a writer, lots of different things because my attention span is very short. And so it's fun to be involved in lots of different things. But I am outside Seattle, Washington. I live on unceded Duwamish land, and you can always support the Duwamish tribe at Real Rent Duwamish. And yeah, that's me.
That is amazing. So many things that you do. I was literally picturing you with fingers in pies when you said that. That's why I was laughing. And I don't want to hear any more slander about not being organized. I've got 1 1.25 Post-it notes for the agenda for today, which I'm proudly showing on screen. If you're watching the video, you get to see that. So listen, hair flip, I'm very organized.
Okay, well, I forgot to write down all the ideas that we had for this episode, and so I am unorganized today, and I'm completely winging it, which is not normal for me. So
we're both completely winging it. Welcome to the disorganized winging it showcase that is the Bad Fatty, a podcast. And just to note, this is the first one. We don't know what we're doing. We've never done a podcast before other than being guests on them, but we have a lot of things that we always talk about when we get together. And I just kept going, OMG, I wish people could be in the room when we have these conversations. So ta-da, here we are. So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna start to have those conversations. So in the future, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you make it through this and you decide that you want to hear more from us, let us know. And we're open to suggestion. But we did decide we want to start things out with a little segment that perhaps could use a better name, but basically is going to be like a thumbs down, thumbs up. What did you call it, Lindley, that I thought was not the name that I wanted to use?
I called it Cheers and Jeers because I'm a creature that apparently arrived from the 1980s today.
I kind of love it and kind of hate it. So we're going to go thumbs up, thumbs down. And do you want to go first?
Sure. My thumbs up is that my hair actually looks really good today, and it has absolutely no right to do so. But I've discovered that since I started bleaching and dyeing my hair, it changed the texture so that I can stick it up in a ponytail now and just pull it down right before a meeting, and it magically looks good. And I have no idea why this works. I'm gonna credit it with like white lady good Becky hair, but I'm really enjoying the fact that it looks like I actually put some effort into it without actually having to do so.
We don't question the good fortune when that thing's happening. Before this, everyone, I was complaining nonstop about my bangs looking jacked up today. They're looking okay right now. It's been a situation all day. What's your thumbs down?
My thumbs down is that I am really craving a Butterfinger mini right now. because the video game that I play had a promo a while back where if you bought a bag of like these little miniature Butterfinger bars, and they're not like the fun size. They're these actual bite-sized things is what they were promoting.
Oh, the bite.
Yeah. And I cannot find them anymore. So they got me hooked on them and now I can't find them.
I don't think they make them anymore. That used to be my movie theater candy of choice.
Okay.
So good. This is not my thumbs up, but I do just want to give like a shout out to the fact that we showed up like matching today, like not on purpose. I showed Lindley earlier. If you're watching the video, you can see I'm holding up my leg in a really delightful position. And my leggings match Lindley's sweater, which is like a teal. And we're both wearing pink and teal. And it was not on purpose, but I am a person who loves to twin. So I just need to acknowledge that we look great together right now.
We have a vibe.
My thumbs up is the like energetic emotional high that I'm still riding, coming out of the Fat Magic retreat that I just hosted last week with none other than the amazing Fierce Fat Femme, Angelina Moles. It was, I think, the best retreat I've ever hosted. It was just like a confluence of like greatness. The people who came there, they showed up like ready to be open and vulnerable and have fun and also grow. There was like some real, honestly, like transformational shit. And then like me and Angelina, who had never hosted anything before together, were a great team. It was just perfect. And so I'm still feeling like really amazing from that. And my thumbs down, I can think of literally nothing. I mean, there's a lot of things in this world that I would like to thumbs down, and I could vent about that for a long time. But my number one today is going to be how fucking hot it is here in Houston. Good God. It's 3:41. Let's check the temperature again. 96 degrees, and we have not hit the hottest part of the day, and also super humid. So there you go. I'm going to try really hard if we continue doing this podcast to not have my thumbs down, just always be how hot it is. I feel like hating the heat is like my entire personality. So that's who we are. That's what we're liking, what we're not liking right now. And I think it's time to like really get into it. And so we thought that the most perfect topic for our first and maybe only podcast episode would be what we decided to name it. It's called Bad Fatty, or the Bad Fatty Podcast. We actually haven't even discussed which version we're going with, whatever. So we want to talk about what the fuck is a good fatty or a bad fatty. And then also we want to share with you a delightful metaphor that we came up with that kind of ties into this, that I've started to say to people and they're really into. So we're going to let you know all about it so that you can be into it also. So good fatty, bad fatty. Lindley, what does this mean?
So good fatty and bad fatty is how we are perceived and how our actions as fat people are perceived by others. So if you are a good fatty, and I want to be really clear that these are roles that we can choose to take on that affect how we're treated. And we all want to be treated well by other people. There are probably not too many people on the planet who seek to not be treated well in their daily lives by other people. And if that's you, like, you know, cool, consenting adults. But most people in their daily lives want to be treated well. And so I want to be really clear as we talk about this that I'm not putting judgment on individuals who choose to fall into or who fall into good fatty or bad fatty roles, because there are a lot of really valid and important reasons that we can choose to take on a role so that our lives aren't as hard. So yeah. With that caveat, a good fatty is somebody who is actively seeking to not be fat, essentially. So this is somebody who might be performatively dieting and performatively exercising, somebody who is going out to eat and choosing the salad, not necessarily because they want the salad, but because they are going to be treated better when they are seen in public eating a salad.
Yeah, you know, I'm just gonna butt in here.
Yeah.
So many thoughts about this. So one of the reasons that I like to talk about good fatty, bad fatty so much is because I'm a bad fatty. Lindley, also a bad fatty, right? I used to be poster child of a good fatty, which is why, and now I look at that and I think about the things that I said and the stuff that I did, and I'm like cringing so hard. And I just want to like grab young Laura Burns and be like slapping, I mean, like kindly slapping with love and compassion, but like slapping just like side to side on their little cute chubby cheeks and being like, shut the fuck up. You're going to learn. Life is going to teach you that you are wrong. And also all the things Lindley said about like compassion and like we understand why people choose to do the things that they do and engage in intentional weight loss and all those things. So like good fatty stuff, I really get amped up about good fatty versus bad fatty stuff because I've been there. I've been that good fatty. I grew up really active, playing sports, in dance, but I was always fat, always the fattest one in the room if there were other fat people. And so I learned along the way that I felt like I had to justify my existence and like, okay, I'm fat, but my cholesterol is perfect. Oh, I've literally, like, you should see my lab results, blah, blah, blah. And I would say these things. I would tell people the numbers on those reports because I felt like that's what I had to do to be treated less like garbage as a fat person. And so when I say like, I understand like the motivation behind engaging in these behaviors, I get it. Like, absolutely. But I also now see how that's really damaging and harmful, both for you and for the rest of us in the world. It's a really complicated thing. Good fatty, bad fatty gets kind of boiled down and like oversimplified, and it becomes like a glib thing that we say. And I'm super guilty of this. It is so much more nuanced and complex than what we usually dive into. But I'm excited to talk about it today and like actually kind of get into some of that.
Yeah, because being the bad fatty is being somebody who is unapologetic about living in a fat body, who is not dieting for weight loss and who is not, which is different from managing a medical condition, to be clear, but who is not trying to
justify their existence.
Yeah, not trying to and not trying to gain the approval of people who harbor bias against fat folks. And this is, like Laura said, this is such a nuanced conversation because it's more than about, I find a useful analogy to be wearing makeup. Because wearing makeup is a lot more complex than just, I'm going to choose whether or not to wear makeup today. Because there are ramifications in how I am perceived, how I am treated by others, the roles that I'm taking on, both from a beauty standard standpoint and a gender standpoint and a performing femininity and all these different things, and those have real ramifications. But at the same time, we can't boil that down to, oh, well, you shouldn't wear makeup because you're a bad feminist if you wear makeup, because it's just way more nuanced than that. And so being a good fatty or a bad fatty is really, really nuanced. And there are some times when, even if we are bad fatties, when we might choose to take on an aspect of the good fatty temporarily for self-preservation. I might choose to say I used to work for a company that was, and the office that I worked in was on the 5th floor. And there was a guy that I worked with who every time we went out to an external meeting, he would like lead us all back up the stairs for 5 flights. And was I capable of doing so? Yes. Was I going to be incredibly out of breath at the top? Yes. But at the time, it was a matter of self-preservation to disguise that. Because I didn't want to be the only person who was panting, because I was also the only fat person. And now in hindsight, I'm betting a lot of other people were very carefully disguising their breathing too.
That's what I was just going to say, is you don't have to be a fat person to be out of breath. Like, a lot of people might be out of breath after climbing 5 sets of stairs, and like the gymnastics that we have to do to like get out of that situation or to disguise our breathing. And this breathing thing is a big one for me because I have like come from like the backpacking world and like the hiking world and stuff. It's a huge thing there with like fat people and hiking and stuff. But yeah, like, oh my God. And of course, you know, that guy was just like, of course we'll take the stairs, you know, like that's good. Get those extra steps in, you know, like whatever, like not thinking at all about anyone else's experience there. I guess like the bad fatty like reaction would be like to take the stairs and be out of breath, or to say, I don't want to take the stairs because I don't feel like it, or I don't want to be out of breath, or I don't want to get sweaty. I'll take the elevator. So what did you do instead? What was your action?
Oh, I went up the stairs with everybody else and I disguised my breathing. And this was about 10 years ago too, before I had as strong of a fat politic as I have now. And before I had, this was when I was really starting to discover fat activism as opposed to like outfit of the day, what would have been more body positivity then, although it was shortly before body positivity became a thing. But this was really the time when I was discovering that deeper work.
Oh, I've like pretended to be injured before, so I didn't have to walk upstairs with people. I have pretended to be pregnant before so that I could sit the fuck down in a situation where other people were standing. I pretended to be pregnant when I was finishing my college degree, and I had not been in the classroom. I had taken a big break from college. I finally went back. I was like, I got like one semester left, and I had gained a lot of weight since I had been in college previously. And I was taking this online class where we only had to show up a few times, but I literally didn't fit in those horrible desks with the like attached, the chair desk combo. Like I literally didn't fit in the seat, like with the desk. It was like jammed into my belly. So I told them that I was pregnant, and that's why like I didn't fit or whatever, because I didn't want to get into it. And it was embarrassing. And this was a long time ago. And so I was like, yeah, I need to just like get like just like a chair, and I'll just like hold my notebook or whatever. And like these are the choices that we make. Like, and think about like the maybe whoever's listening to this has never like had to make that decision before. Imagine like how that feels to do that, you know, like that feels like shit. It feels really bad to feel like I had to pretend to be pregnant, or that I was injured, or, you know, like to have to disguise your breath going up the stairs.
Which is also hard.
Which is also really, really hard. It's like the tax on us, you know, it's like this extra layer of shit that we have to deal with if we're choosing not to be seen, to be visible, to take up space, to be loud, like all those things, you know, like this is the trade-off. So in that moment, maybe I felt like more respected, more like dignity as a human being, but the trade-off is, you know, X, Y, or Z. And so like when we say we understand why people choose to like be a quote good, I'm doing a lot of air quotes today, to be like a quote good fatty, I get it. I understand why people choose intentional weight loss. I get it, because they want to access privilege. They want to not be treated like a garbage person. They want to be like, have any like modicum of respect and dignity as a human being. And even losing a small amount of weight, people treat you differently. It happens so quickly. So I get it. I completely understand. That's one of the reasons why this is such a nuanced conversation. Do I agree with intentional weight loss? No, I don't. Do I understand why people choose to do that? Yes. Do I agree with weight loss surgery? No, I don't think it's a good thing. I personally have lost friends because they died after getting it, especially in the beginning when they didn't have the VSG, I think it's called, the sleeve, when it was like legit gastric bypass, like all of that. Literally have friends who died, but I also have friends who died after getting VSG, and people like don't realize that that's like a thing that still happens. Anyway, so like I am not going to change my opinion on that, but I also understand why some people choose to do it. For the access, for any amount of privilege. And then also think about like what other layers of marginalization or oppression are happening with that person. If you're listening to this, like, I really try not to be judgmental about those things. I know what I believe and what I would want for myself. I know what I would want for other people, but I also don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. You know, I don't know what it feels like to do that. And if I believe in body autonomy, I feel like I say this so often, right? If I believe in body autonomy and I get to do what I want with my body, then you do too, right? Then it's not my place to have an opinion or to judge or to say you're doing the wrong thing. And yeah, and sometimes that's hard, but like if that's what we believe in, that people get to own their bodies, they get to do what they want, then we have to hold that to be true.
Yeah. And as activists, well, I'm not going to speak for both of us, but I know something that gets thrown at me a lot is you don't want people to be able to choose for themselves. And yeah, of course I do, but I want people to have options.
A real option,
Yeah.
not just like I feel like I have no options, so I'm going to try to lose weight or I'm going to whatever.
Right.
And it's not always like being a good fatty is not always about weight loss, but it's also like we haven't kind of mentioned this, but like another part of being a quote good fatty is about the pursuit of health and the performance of the pursuit of health, right? Which are two different things. So like when I was a good fatty, I was very much pursuing like the mainstream definition of health. I had some stuff going on with my body, but I was like very able-bodied, like not a ton of health things, but like a little bit. And over time, and this is what I hear from so many people, is like over time, it's like, oh, chronic illness number one. Okay. Oh, maybe it only takes one. Maybe it takes more. It took more than one chronic illness for me to change the way I was thinking. I was really indoctrinated in diet culture. And even after I was like letting go of diet culture, I was really indoctrinated in like good fattiness. But so like 3 chronic illnesses later and like really starting to see how healthism and ableism show up in my life and how it impacts me and like my how I'm treated and how I view other people, how I perceive even myself in the past, how I perceive other people. Really just starting to see how we are doing ourselves and the world a disservice when we are pursuing this one definition of health, when we are pursuing something that may not ever be available. I understand now, I will never be healthy in the way that the world would want me to be healthy, which number one is usually you start with a small body, which right, small body doesn't equal health, but in mainstream society it does, right? So like I will never be able to be healthy in the way that they want. I have 3 chronic illnesses. I'm a fat person. I got a lot of stuff going on with my body, and like continuing to chase that hurts me physically and emotionally, and it hurts our community when we're all chasing this thing that we cannot achieve. Then we never get to arrive at the place where we think we're supposed to go, and like mentally that is a mind fuck. And so for me, that was a big thing, is like realizing that what I was chasing was not possible. And so if that's true, if I'm basing my self-worth off of this thing that I'm chasing that I can never achieve, that means that I will never be worthy. And I don't want to live like that. I want to be able to be worthy. So, okay, I got to shift what I'm thinking. What do you think about that, Lindley?
Yeah, I think the concept of worth runs through all this. Because it's something that we haven't touched on yet that I think ties right into this is the concept of worth paired with the concept of trying. Because the reactions that we get when we are performatively dieting and we're choosing the salad and we're at the office and we're only eating half a slice of pizza or a quarter of a bagel, well, at least they're trying. And you see this in every internet comment section that has anything to do with fatness too. Well, they should be trying to lose weight.
You gave up if you're not trying. You've given up.
Right.
You're making the choice to just be fat and unhealthy, and we owe it to the world to be trying.
Right. And so you were treated so much better. Let me tell you how many doctors I've lied to. When they have said, oh, are you getting X movement per week? I'm a house cat. Unlike Laura, I don't do movement unless it's for a purpose. I mean, and obviously that purpose can also be it makes you feel good or there's joy in it or whatever. But like, and I do take one of Laura's yoga classes every week that I don't have a conflict, but because it has a purpose for me. But I don't seem to get endorphins from exercise. I don't know. Does that mean that I never move? No, of course not. But I don't do what we would think of as like fitness type exercise. And so every doctor ever, they cannot resist, no matter how good they are or think they are about fat folks, they cannot resist. Well, are you at least getting in some movement? And I will tell them yes, no matter what the actual situation at that moment is. Because the perception that I am trying, and yes, if for that moment I've turned into a good fatty, because the perception that I am trying gives me better access to healthcare.
Yeah.
Which is if I'm interacting with a doctor, that's what I need at that moment.
And also, as a person who does get movement in, and so can honestly say, yes, I'm getting that amount of movement in, it's never enough. Because then they go, oh, well, you should do X number of minutes more, or miles more, or this, or more frequency, or whatever. It's never enough, Lindley. It doesn't even matter if it's a lie or not, because it's never enough, because they look at your fat body and they decide that they know everything. How many times have we been, I'm going to speak for you in this moment, because I'm going to know that I already know this is true. How many times have you been to the doctor and they don't even ask, what are you eating, right? They just assume that they know what you're eating. This is like a universal. I have met, I don't know, one person, two people in my life who are like, yeah, that never happens. And they're in a fat body. It happens to all, like pretty much all of us. There's just assumptions made. And even when I was in good fattydom, I would answer those questions if they deigned to ask what I was eating, or I would just tell them. And it was like, very quote, I'm doing air quotes, very healthy, right? A lot of vegetable. I was a vegan, I was a vegetarian, I was a raw vegan. That was, ooh, yikes. As a person with IBS, being a raw vegan is not the move, let me just say. But even when I was like super restrictive in my eating disorder and I was like trying to be a good fatty, it was still never enough. Being, the most restrictive, like super clean eating, like orthorexia situation, it was not enough. It's never enough because your body is still fat. It's not enough until your body is small by any means possible. And that's the thing, is like, being a good fatty means reaching for that, whatever, that goal of fitness or of health in general, of eating, of whatever, by any means possible. Because a good fatty is, potentially hurting themselves to be like that, and that's what we mean when we say bad fatty. It's like, I am no longer willing to hurt myself to strive for the definition of health or whatever that somebody else set. Right? Like, so being a bad fatty is saying, here's my definition of health, which might be not being healthy. Right? So like when I got to decide, okay, my definition of health is not anywhere near what the mainstream definition of health is. My definition of health is not pursuing treatment for my IBS because it's literally traumatic emotionally and physically for my body. Instead, my definition of health is mitigating symptoms on the daily basis, because now I can leave my house. Now I'm not like anxious and upset and being put into situations that are really harmful for me in many ways, right? That's my definition of health, right? Is like harm reduction in that case. And that's a really hard concept for people to swallow.
And outside of health, being a bad fatty might look like not accepting poor treatment based on your size. Mm-hmm. It might look like speaking up. Nothing gets you labeled a bad fatty faster than speaking up about poor treatment based on size discrimination.
Yeah, they don't like that.
Yeah. And it might look like wearing clothes that you actually like, that aren't, it's my term for the air quotes, that aren't flattering.
Oh my God, flattering. Fucking flattering.
Yeah.
It's one of my least favorite words. Yeah, I'm so glad you bring up clothes stuff, because like within like the realm of clothing, when I was a good fatty, it was like, well, it was also like the early 2000s. So it was like, you put a belt on everything. You still have to emphasize your waist, right? You might be fat, but you can emphasize the smallest part, right? A belt over, those of you who were not like of age or whatever in the early 2000s, let me just tell you, you missed out on a phase where literally everyone put a belt over fucking every outfit. You put on a dress, you put on a cardigan, oh, you better put a belt over that on top of all the things, right? It's like, what? Oh my God. So yeah, like choosing to not try to make your body into an hourglass. If it's not a fucking hourglass, that's a bad fatty. Choosing to wear comfortable shoes instead of heels, choosing not to wear shapewear, choosing to wear clothing silhouettes that are shapeless, right? Or like really flowy and don't emphasize any part of the body. That's being a bad fatty. Letting your belly outline be visible, right? VBO, that's when VBO kind of started to pick up speed as like a thing. Having a haircut that makes you happy, having short hair, having bangs when you're fat. I've had people refuse to give me bangs, even though it's like, I've had bangs before. I really like bangs. Here are photos of me with bangs. I like it. Would not give me bangs because I have a quote round face. I actually don't have a round, like my face shape isn't actually round. I'm just fat. Not wanting to cut short hair. I used to always have a pixie cut. Oh, it's more flattering to have longer hair because you can kind of disguise your double chin. Disguise, like having longer hair that covers my double chin from the side is not going to like mitigate, like I'm backing up so that if you're watching the video, you can see my belly. It's not going to make me thin all of a sudden that I have hair. Like wearing color, wearing patterns, like all of this stuff, it's like ingrained into us. It's like, it's bad. You don't want to be visible. You don't want to be seen. You don't want to stick out. You don't want to be loud. All of this stuff, right? So being a good fatty is like adhering to all these rules. Ugh, I feel like I'm yelling. I get so like, what about this stuff.
Yeah, and I just keep coming back to like good fatty and bad fatty as when it comes to boundaries and the kinds of treatment that we will and won't accept too, beyond not that I was going to say just the physical aspects. And of course, the physical aspects aren't just anything, they're really important. But it's also no longer tolerating, say if your family is mean to you about your body or gives you lectures about your body or
about what you're eating.
Sorry.
I just said, or about what you're eating.
Yeah, your eating choices, your food choices, anything about yourself or your body, setting boundaries around that. Is a really good way to be perceived as a bad fatty, but may also be the only way you're ever going to get any peace. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're trading the temporary discomfort of having to set a boundary and being perceived, because the way that we're perceived it can affect our mental health even when it's not direct. I'm not sure how much sense that makes, but like I grew up Southern in the Southern United States, and sometimes you can hear it in my accent and sometimes you can't. But even though I live in the Pacific Northwest now, but things there's a lot of things that are implied, a lot of passive aggressiveness, a lot of social context. And so I can only speak from my own experience here, but when I know that I am being perceived a specific way, it affects how I am being treated by other people, but it also, that culture, it's meant for that to take a toll on you. And so you might be, when you're setting a boundary around your body, you might be taking that on in exchange for not having constant aggression at you, and just knowing that that is the way that you're going to be perceived, and being okay with that. Or maybe it's a decision you're making from moment to moment. Maybe you're willing to set a boundary around this, but it's less aggro in your life if you don't set a boundary around that. It's always this constant negotiation.
You're like weighing your options. It's like, okay, I'm going to be making people uncomfortable, which then causes microaggressions or overt aggression. So like, what am I comfortable with making people feel uncomfortable about? Maybe I'm comfortable, about clothing, but I'm not comfortable with food. Maybe I'm comfortable with setting boundaries about health stuff, but not comfortable about fertility or, like stuff like yeah, it could be like a constant negotiation. And it's just like self-preservation in this moment. What can I handle reinforcing? Right? Because like all of this stuff is like constantly tested and tested and tested. So like there's some people in my life that I have like this set of boundaries with, and there's some people in my life that I have a lot more boundaries with because I know that it is easier to hold them because they don't test me as much. Right? And so it's like harm reduction. What can I handle from which people, and how am I doing in the world? It's like this constant negotiation in our heads. It's like so exhausting. Like this is another toll on our bodies, is that we have to think about this whole set of shit that other people don't have to think about. And you and I have privileges that a lot of people don't, and they have to think about even more shit.
Yeah.
And not that it's like oppression Olympics, but like recognizing the privilege that you have is really important. I want to go back to something that you said earlier when you were talking about body positivity. Let's just like kind of briefly maybe go through body positive versus body liberation versus fat liberation. And then I want to talk about our two lakes.
Yeah, do it.
Let's define the differences between these things. So disclaimer, the definition of these terms like changes because of popular culture. When body positivity, came on the scene or was first being developed like a really long time ago, it was more radical. It was different. It was much more like fat centered and disability centered. The way that it kind of emerged into the world on Instagram is a little different. So we're going to be talking, I think, about the way that it exists now in the year 2022 on social media and in the world, usually, oh God, this is where we get into capitalism, co-opted by capitalism to sell us things that make us feel like shit about ourselves. I'm looking at you, Dove, with your deodorant that makes underarms more attractive. I will never shut up about that. It is infuriating. So if you're a person who knows the history of like body positivity and fat liberation, you know what I'm talking about. We're not talking about that. It's too much. That's a whole episode in and of itself. We're just talking about what body positivity has come to mean now. And that is kind of like a rah, love your body, kind of like imagine like a thin influencer like hunching over to make rolls and saying like, oh, aren't I brave for like daring to have like a skin roll, but it's not even fat, like this kind of thing. It's like straight size people kind of inventing body issues for themselves. Oh, this is gonna listen, fuck. Okay, thin people can absolutely have body image issues for sure. Thin people have eating disorders. Thin people have all kinds of stuff going on. I do not mean to belittle thin people in this, but I also don't want to center thin people's feelings. And if you're feeling offended right now, please know that I'm really not trying to, but not everything is about that. The whole world centers thin people's feelings. So listen, bad fatties don't center thin people's feelings. I don't mean that you're like less worthy or anything. I feel like I have to have this disclaimer because people like to get mad at me. We are all worthy. Everybody has issues. I want to talk about fat people right now. So body positivity has come to mean just like love your body. Like you just need to love your body and everything will be better and you'll feel better about yourself and everything will be great. So that's what I mean. And obviously there's more nuance to it than that, but this is like a podcast for people who never make podcasts. So we're going to be like kind of low level here. Lindley, do you have stuff to add to that definition?
Yeah, body positivity by its very nature is aimed at everyone who has a human body. And obviously we want there to be we being me and Lara and all fat activists, we want the world to exist in a way where all human bodies are able to access body care and body love, body care from an emotional standpoint. Also by its very nature, when we talk about all bodies, the power lies with bodies that are the closest to cultural beauty standards. And so many activists and many people who are invested in breaking down these systems of power and these systems of oppression prefer to go with something closer to fat positivity, because fat positivity specifically centers bodies that are much further away from these pop culture beauty standards and further away from the center of power, because it resists the focus just being pulled right back to this is why Laura and I are doing this podcast episode, because I also immediately thought of Dove and that co-opting of something that was originally created by and centered on fat people, and just immediately said, how can we use this to sell thin people things, essentially?
Okay, so just to keep like these definitions separate, body positivity, say 3 words that come to your mind when you think of body positivity.
Love, shallow, mid-size.
Okay. Yeah. I also thought the word shallow. So, okay, I'll pick something else. I'm going to say surface. I'm going to say, what is the word? I want to just say capitalism. I'm just going to say capitalism. And I'm going to say white. So that, I don't know if that helps people. I had a like real flippant thing. Lindley went into like some nice articulate shit, but these 3 words from each of us, I feel like it's a good idea. We're going like not a deep dive here. So then body liberation, right? So to me, body liberation is like the ideology or whatever that people move to once body positive kind of stopped being about centering the most marginalized. And so they were like, well, I don't want to, this is, and like literally this is me. I don't want to say body positive anymore because that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good to me. So I'm going to start saying body liberation, because to me, this is like a little different, because it's not about like, oh, I just want to love myself. It's like, oh, I just want access to healthcare. Oh, I just want to be paid the same as a thin person. Oh, I just want to not be treated like garbage, right? And it's not about like, oh, I just want to love myself. I just want my body image to improve. And like, like I make everything a joke, right? But it's not a fucking joke. So to me, body liberation was like the move. And then in my opinion, it kind of has also started to become like what happened to body positive, in that like the smaller fats, what people are calling mid-size now, and the thin folks kind of came in and they were like, yeah, body liberation, which like, listen, yeah, body liberation for everyone, absolutely, but like stop pushing out the most marginalized folks in order for you to have your body liberation moment. We all deserve it. I want all of us to have it. And also what happens is that the most marginalized people get pushed out of the movement, and the things that started to help them organize and connect and make change become about the least marginalized people. Does that feel like body liberation, like kind of in a very small nutshell?
Yes, and for me, the difference between positivity and liberation has been about the difference between individuals versus systems. Yeah. And so inherently, like the positivity is centered in how I feel about my body, how I stick up for my body, whatever, how I choose to dress my body, what products I choose to buy for my body, to bring it back to capitalism. And inherently liberation is, or should be, about breaking down the systems that made me not love my body in the first place. The systems that supported white supremacy and white beauty standards in the first place. When I pulled in my thumbs up earlier, when I talked about my hair looking good, I said that was about white Becky with the good hair. That's a white beauty standard. And it pleases me today that my hair happens to be closer to that standard than it might otherwise be, but that's a white beauty standard. And if you can't see the video, which we will be posting probably on YouTube somewhere, but if you can't see this, I'm gesturing really hard right now. But and so liberation should be about these systems. And in some ways it's even more of a problem when then that becomes co-opted. Mm-hmm. And so there are folks in the activism community now that are moving away from body liberation as a term because it is also being co-opted.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I'm like raising the roof, like, like vigorously nodding. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So fat liberation is, if that is true about body positivity, if that is true about body liberation, then fat liberation then is the next move towards still trying to get our fucking space to advocate for what we're looking for. So to me, fat liberation is about fat community. It's about collective care. It's about, it's not about body image. Like, do I want everyone to love their body? Yes. Do I think it's possible to love your body all the time? No, because we live within the world that we live within, and that is constantly teaching us like X, Y, and Z, right? That's a whole other conversation. But to me, fat liberation is like, let's center the fattest of the fats. Let's center people with multiple intersections of marginalizations. Let's allow them to speak. Let's let them be seen and heard and take up space and all the things, right? Like the people who keep getting pushed out, like I imagine like a little timeline, you know, the people who like get pushed out of body positivity, that get pushed out of body liberation, like I want them to be like, oh, I'm putting my hands on my hips and like doing like a power stance. Like I want them to stand in all their power. I want their voices to be heard. And in some cases, I'm part of that group. And in a lot of cases, I'm not, because I got a lot of privilege. I got a lot of stuff going on, you know, that makes it easier for me to exist in the world. I also have stuff that is not a privilege. And so like we can exist in different ways within these communities, like within fat liberation. Sometimes I'm loud and sometimes I shut the fuck up, right? Sometimes I'm at the front in my power stance and sometimes I'm like in the back, like, you know, supporting from below, or, you know, like lifting people up or providing whatever. I don't know what kind of like metaphor I'm trying to make here, but like I'm at the bottom of the cheerleading pyramid sometimes, and sometimes I'm towards the top. But what I recognize is that we have different positions to be. And within fat liberation, it is for people, it is for fat people, it is about fat people, and it is by fat people. And also we need smaller fats and we need straight sized people to be what everybody likes, allies, whatever. I don't know. I have a complicated relationship with that word, but like we need everyone else to be on board, but we need you at the bottom of that cheerleading pyramid. You know, like we need you doing the things that you can do in your life that also don't take away from the space that fat folks are taking up, who have like, you know, all the layers of marginalization. So what do I mean by that? I mean, like you're a small fat or a mid-size or you're a straight size person and you're at work and somebody makes a fat joke. You need to be the person to be like, hey, that's not funny. And here's why. Every time, not like once and then you like pat yourself on the back. And I'm not trying to be a bitch. Honestly, I'm just saying like, this is the shit that we really need. And people are always like, how can I be an ally? I'm like, this is how. Every time somebody says something fat phobic, say something. Every time somebody says something racist or homophobic or transphobic or ableist or classist or healthist, like all these things, say something. Because unfortunately, number one, people need that reinforced a lot of times before their own opinions start to change. And secondly, it's going to mean more coming from you. And that sucks.
I agree. And I also feel like this segues beautifully into the concept of the two lakes that we came up with a while back, because like I could immediately sort of feel the resistance on the listener end when smaller people hear we need you on the bottom of the cheerleading pyramid.
I know.
Because it sounds thankless, it sounds hard. But it's also a really fantastic analogy, because if you are taking a turn at the bottom of the pyramid, and you live in a more privileged body from whatever aspect, and like Laura was saying, we all have aspects where we're more privileged and less. But there's a good chance that maybe this is your first turn at the bottom of the pyramid, or maybe it's your fifth. But it's also likely that the person that you're supporting might not ever have had a chance at the top. And so yeah, it's hard, thankless work to be at the bottom, and it does mean
it's like absolutely necessary.
Yeah, but it also means that the people around you have probably always been on the bottom. And so if this is your first time and you're finding that it really sucks, think about spending your whole life there, because it's likely that you haven't realized how many people have been supporting you over time, whether they wanted to or not. And I'm autistic, and I am really invested all the time in the practical. And so I love analogies. Like this cheerleading thing is really working for me. But then also, like, what does that look like? And that's a whole different discussion. Maybe we'll do another episode on that, like how that translates into real life.
Let us know if you want to hear that. Tell us.
But maybe that looks like stepping back and letting somebody else have an opportunity. Maybe it looks like seeking out someone for an opportunity that you've been approached about. There are a million things a million ways that might look. But it's really about asking the folks who've always been at the top to step back. And so this segues so neatly with the concept of these two lakes, because I did a newsletter about this a while back. I can't remember if I put it on the blog or not. If not, I'll put it there so that it's searchable. But the concept is there are two lakes, and one is at the bottom of a mountain, and it's called Donut Lake, and it's sunny there. It's warm. It's at the bottom of the mountain, so it's like pleasantly summer warm, without being 100 Texas degrees. As I look at Laura.
90% humidity.
Yeah, I know, it's nice. It feels good. The water is pleasantly cool without being cold. And there are vendors all around the lake who will sell you beach chairs.
Delicious food. There's music pumping. It's your favorite song all the time.
Yeah, and it's just a cool, fun, awesome place to be. And it's populated by people who tend to be in relatively thin to thin bodies. And then at the top of the mountain is Liberation Lake. It's at the top of a mountain, so it's colder and the water's colder, and maybe there are some clouds up top. But there are a whole bunch of fat people up there that are doing the work to generate the water. And the water flows downhill to Donut Lake. And if you haven't figured out the analogy, this is body liberation or fat liberation at the top, and then it's body positivity at the bottom. And so the people who were up top, who were generating this beautiful crystal clear water that flows down the mountain, they're not getting paid to do that. They're not getting, there's no vendors up there. There are very few people swimming. There's nobody giving them money for that work. They're just up there doing that work because the water needs to be created. And so to be really, to be the bad fatty and be really blunt about this, body positivity takes the work, the water that fat activists and other marginalized thought leaders and activists create. I want to be very clear that this is one of a large number of possible marginalizations, and it's what we're here to talk about, but it overlaps with many other things as well.
Oh, and I raised my hand because I want to say this. Not only is this like the work of like all the fat activists and just like fat people who never wanted to be an activist but ended up having to be one in order to live their life, but it's also built on decades of the hard ass work that fat people and other marginalized folks have been doing for a long time with absolutely no recognition, and who are not ever like shouted out now, or very rarely are acknowledged that they have been doing this work or that people did this work. Like body positivity did not begin on Instagram, right? Like this fat liberation did not start with social media. And so not only are we up here at the top and it's fucking cold and there's no delicious food and we had to swim upstream to get there and it sucks and there's no music and like we're just working all the time and like supporting each other, but like also there's all these people who did that and who never got any kind of like thanks or appreciation. It's just like honestly like just worked really hard fighting for these things and to go unacknowledged, and that is a really hard life to have because like we're human beings and we like to be acknowledged and validated for the hard work that we do. So now this beautiful delicious body liberating water, or whatever we're describing it as, is flowing downstream to this gorgeous, hot, sunny, but not too hot, delicious food having, music pumping, comfortable chairs everywhere situation. And it's like, love your body. Oh, loving your body is so great. We love it. Yay. Awesome. And those people don't want to leave that lake. And they're like, oh, I see that like up there, something's going on, but like, that's really hard to get to. I really don't want to like swim upstream or climb this mountain. I'm going to stay here because it's really great here, right? And they never leave Donut Lake and they just exist there reaping the benefits, which honestly, we want everyone to have the benefits, but like, we need some help.
Yeah.
You know, like if everybody stays at Donut Lake and people don't go up to, I forgot what you called it,
Liberation Lake.
Liberation Lake. right, then like eventually the people at Liberation Lake are going to get fucking tired, right? They're going to stop doing that work, and they're going to realize that like people don't care, or they don't care enough, right? And this is like a very like brutalist view of this. And this comes from, you know, like I'll speak for myself, somebody who feels very often like they work very hard on these things, and people steal their work, literally steal their content. I don't know, I'm third person. People steal my content and they post it as theirs, and it's usually white folks in a smaller body. And it's like, oh, revolutionary ideas because it's coming from them, right? I know so many fat creators who have their work literally like their graphics that they created, their original thoughts, their ideas stolen and reposted as their own. It happens in every, like, not just in movement spaces, in, you know, like dietitian spaces and just activism stuff. Like it happens so much. They take your work or they take your labor and they expect it for free. Like that's a thing that Lindley and I talk about all the time. So it's just like, there are these two lakes and people don't want to leave the fun one, right? But the thing is, if more people would leave the fun one and come up to the one that is admittedly less fun, we could make it more fun. We could make it so much easier. You know, it's like the whole like many hands make light work or whatever that phrase is, you know, like if we were all doing the same thing, imagine the change that we could create and how much faster we could be creating this change. Like if you like body positivity and like what has happened on social media and like in the past 10 years or whatever, imagine if we were all getting like more into it. Imagine if we were all pushing for like policy change, for you know, like adding the size as like a protected status, or, you know, like any of the things that exist, like instead of, you know, clawing, you know, one handful of dirt at a time. I don't know, I'm mixing so many metaphors now, but like you get it. Imagine the change that we could create if we were all actually working on creating this change instead of just enjoying Donut Lake. And I fully recognize that I'm like up on a soapbox right now. But like, this is what happens when Lily and I hang out. Like, it's so disheartening sometimes. I'm like, I don't mean to be a bummer, but like, it's really disheartening to feel like there's a group of people working so hard on stuff and it's really hard to make that progress. And then you see people in a smaller body, like a white, thin woman, just taking that work, taking that stuff and like building a brand on it and like finding wild success. When you see that content that they stole from like a Black woman or a disabled person or whatever, and you see that that person doesn't have that same level of success, you know, and like how many times can you see something like that happen before you get so mad and so disheartened, you know?
Well, here's my half of the soapbox. We are up on this together, and here's my end of it. Is that once again, I want to draw a really clear line between the people who are swimming around in Donut Lake, who are enjoying something that maybe they've never had access to a lake before.
Yes.
Maybe this is the first time they've ever been in one. And what kind of cool community are they finding? What kind of cool, maybe they're learning how to swim and they've never had a chance to do that. That's amazing. But I want to draw a really clear line between individuals who are there as individuals and people who are building platforms, careers, and profit off of, this is my turn to get really loud, off of Donut Lake. And this is companies like Dove. This is social media influencers who are body positivity influencers who are in small bodies. This is clothing lines that are claiming to be inclusive when they're not, which is a whole
air quotes. That's a whole episode.
That's a whole thing. But all these people who are using the water that came from Liberation Lake to build their businesses and their careers and their profit streams, they are taking things that don't really belong to them. And often, not always, but often they are not adding anything of value. It's just capitalizing, coming back to capitalism, capitalizing on the work that other people did and just repackaging it. It's kind of, you know, it's scooping water out of the lake, pouring it into a bottle and saying, look, here's a commemorative Donut Lake bottle. And all they've done is stick it in a bottle and put a price tag on it. And so I want to be really clear that just like when we talk about good fatty, bad fatty, if you are someone who is following a lot of body positive influencers, we're not yelling at you, I promise. But if you are a body positive influencer who is regurgitating and often watering down, pun intended, I guess. But if you are taking this stuff and just repeating it without adding anything of your own, and without crediting who you are learning from, without pointing people to sources that are more radical than you, without elevating other voices, those are the folks that I get really frustrated with, because those are the folks who are keeping people in Donut Lake for their own power and profit, and possibly cynically, possibly thoughtlessly, using the people who are generating that water up top for their own uses. And that's really crappy. That's a crappy thing to do to other human beings. Maybe don't do that anymore.
Maybe don't do that anymore. Absolutely. So yeah, so we're not mad at you. We're not trying to be offensive. We're just like being real honest. We're giving our real opinions. That's the whole point. That's the point of this Bad Fatty podcast. It's like, I want people to hear the conversations that we have when we're not recording, which is literally the entire point of starting this. And to speak to that, we want to know what you want to hear opinions about, or what topics you would love to hear other fat people talk about. If you're a fat person, let us know. So did you make it this far? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you're not listening to me say this right now. If you made it this far and you liked this, thanks. I'm making a cute face. Giving little hearts your way. Come find us on Instagram. I am at, I almost said Body Liberation with Lindley. I am at Radical Body Love on all the things. My website is radicalbodylove.com. Come find me on Instagram, comment on literally anything, or send me a DM. I don't care. Let me know that you enjoyed this. Let me know any topics you have or any questions you have. Lindley, you want to say yours?
I am at Body Liberation with Lindley. I don't know why Laura's trying to steal my Instagram.
I don't know.
But yeah, I'm at Body Liberation with Lindley on Instagram. I'm at Lindley Ashline on Twitter, and my website is bodyliberationphotos.com. And yeah, come find us. Tell us what you want to hear opined about, and we've got some show notes to put up for you along with this. So see that, and we'll put our links there as well. And hope you enjoyed, and hope to see you back again.
Yeah, and like, listen, if you have kind, compassionate, constructive criticism, we'd love to hear it. Let us know about topics, all the things that I already said, so I won't repeat it again. And yeah, I don't know. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I think that's it. And maybe we'll see you next time.
Yeah, talk soon.